Welcome back. Welcome back. Well, how did we come to be here? Religious people think that man was created by a god, but that's not the opinion of many scientists and atheists, who suggest that evolution, the theory of Charles Darwin, can explain the existence of all life on Earth. Scientist and atheist Richard Dawkins had a worldwide bestseller a couple of years ago with his book, The God Delusion. Now he's back with a new book entitled The Greatest Show on Earth, which in his usual provocative style insists that evolution is an unarguable certainty, a fact, to explain life on Earth. Richard, welcome.
Thank you very much.
One thing that you talk about, actually not at the beginning of the book, but later on, but is a sort of prefatory question, which is, how do you think now that the world actually began?
The world began, the Earth began, by condensing out of a disk of gas. The Sun and all the planets were a disk of gas. They condensed at about 4.6 billion years ago. The Sun became the great bulk of the disk. The great bulk of the disk became the Sun, and then the planets were spinning around. That's how the world began. The universe began rather longer ago, about 13 or 14 billion years ago. And how that happened is more problematical. Physicists are working on that. As for life, which is my subject, well, that didn't start till 3-point-something billion years ago and has been evolving ever since.
That's fascinating. And would you say that that is, what you were saying there, that is a fact, or is it something you know or something you believe?
Well, that's something that would not be doubted by any reputable bishop or priest or archbishop or cardinal. So that's not in dispute among theologians or scientists. Of course, science occasionally changes and it has to be brought up to date. So, but I think the case of evolution, the fact of evolution, that's never going to change. That's rather in the same category as the solar system, the fact that the Earth orbits the Sun, that's never going to change either.
It may alter a little, mightn't it?
In detail.
Science does, doesn't it?
It may alter in detail, but I think you can pretty much say that there are certain things which we know for sure. And one is that we are cousins of chimpanzees, we're more distant cousins of octopuses and so on.
And in fact, which came first in your life? Reading about your life, it was at the age of 9 that you began to lean towards atheism, and the age of 15 that you became interested in evolution.
Yeah.
I mean, atheism came first and evolution second,
Not
or
really.
the other way
no,
around?
I mean, at the age of 9, I wouldn't say that I was an atheist. I would say that I just became aware that there were lots of different religions and they couldn't all be right, which is a bit different from being atheist.
And if you take, for instance, the thing you quote in the back of the book about one of the polls that Gallup took in America about the question, human beings have developed over millions of years from less advanced forms of life, but God guided this process. Do you regard that as someone who's on your side or not? Is that not satisfactory for you?
It's an interesting question. I mean, that would be the point of view of a typical vicar or bishop, because they accept the fact of evolution. The evidence is overwhelming, so they can't not accept that. But they think that God maybe started it off, possibly helped it over some of the difficult jumps kind of thing. And in this particular book, in The Greatest Show on Earth, I'm not quarrelling with that. I would in The God Delusion. But this book is about the evidence for evolution itself. And so somebody who believes that evolution was guided by God would probably not have any problem with this book. I would have a problem with that, but that's a separate story.
That's because you said that The God Delusion was probably your last work on atheism.
Well, for the time being, yes.
For the time being.
Yes.
For the time being.
Yeah.
And now it is a fact. What is you say in the book, what is the most important piece of evidence for that? Evolution is a fact.
Okay. There's lots and lots of different kinds of evidence. It all kind of piles up. Fossils used to be the most important evidence. I think they've rather been eclipsed now by molecular genetics. If you compare the genes of any animal you like, any plant you like, they've all got the same genetic code, which is amazing for a start. That means that you can actually read the genes of every living creature, and you can actually compare what's clearly the same gene in a human and an oak tree, or a human and a kangaroo. And you can compare the differences. So the same gene, they've got telling the same story, but each letter maybe, you know, 1 in 10 letters is different, or 1 in 20 letters is different. So the sheer amount of detail in which we resemble all living creatures is overwhelming. And you can, by looking at different genes, you can show that we are most similar to chimpanzees, a bit less similar to monkeys, a bit less similar to rats, a bit less similar to fish, and so on. The whole thing falls on a beautiful hierarchical tree, which has to be a family tree.
And in terms of scientists, in terms of, can someone be, in terms of science and religion and so on, I mean, can a scientist who is religious be as good a scientist as one who isn't?
I think so. I mean, there are good examples of that. Francis Collins, for example, who headed the American branch of the Human Genome Project, deeply religious man, very good scientist. It does happen, yes. I find it slightly hard to reconcile, but yes, it does happen.
It does happen in that particular
It's fairly rare. I mean, if you look at the figures for both the American National Academy of Sciences and the British Royal Society, which are the kind of equivalent bodies, the fellows of the Royal Society or the fellows of the National Academy of Sciences, it's something under 10% who are religious. But nevertheless, there is that 10%.
Where do we go? Where do atheists go when we die, when they die?
The same place everybody else goes, into the ground.
Into the ground?
Yes,
No.
yeah.
I was interviewing Burgess Meredith once, and the actor, and he was saying that he went to visit W.C. Fields, a great comedian and a famous atheist in America, on his deathbed. And when he got in there, he found, to his astonishment, W.C. Fields reading the Bible. And he said to him, "What on earth are you, of all people, doing reading the Bible?" And W.C. Fields said, "Looking for loopholes." Maybe people do get more nervous.
Yes. Well, there are plenty of stories of deathbed conversions which are usually lies. I mean, there's one about Darwin, for example.
What's that?
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, it's a myth, and it's widely publicised. It's totally untrue, but there was a myth that Darwin had a deathbed conversion. I'm going to make very sure that I've got a tape recorder running on when I'm going.
And you're going to have it plays after you die. It says
to prove
I still believe everything I said.
To prove there's no deathbed conversion.
Yes,
Yeah.
Well, I think W.C. Fields. I don't think he had a deathbed conversion, but I think he did say that. On the way there. Yeah. Well, it's a joy to talk. There's lots more to talk about next time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great pleasure. Thank you very much.